It is Wednesday, May 15th, 2024, an SEC West Championship, maybe an SEC Championship will be on the line when Arkansas goes to College Station this weekend. We'll talk about that, also about that big comeback the Razorbacks had over the weekend against Mississippi State. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Kendall King, where it's all about teamwork. Building brands around a design concept, Kendall King takes pride in their skill sets in displays and signage, as well as .com photography, content creation, and influencer marketing. The bases are loaded, and the Kendall King team is bringing it home. This is the Whole Hog Baseball Podcast, presented by Kendall King, the first podcast devoted entirely to Arkansas baseball, featuring insight from Arkansas baseball color analyst Bubba Carpenter. Here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hey, good morning. If you're watching us on our social media pages here at Whole Hog Sports, good afternoon, whatever it is, if you're listening to us on our podcast pages. We appreciate you being with us. Arkansas with a big opportunity this week as they go to College Station. An SEC West title will be on the line. It can't be split. If Arkansas wins one game over the Aggies, the Razorbacks are the SEC West champions. If the Aggies sweep Arkansas, they win the SEC West. I guess you could get into some rain out type scenarios where maybe you do get a split, but rain is a consideration down in College Station this weekend. In the SEC title, and we're going to break all this down a little bit later, but Arkansas's got some work to do with Kentucky having a one-game lead. Kentucky, Tennessee still in the mix. A&M's still in the mix, although it's real unlikely that the Aggies are going to win an SEC overall title. We'll get into all of that. But first, we want to talk about the Mississippi State series last week. And the game on Sunday is what everyone's talking about. Arkansas comes back from a 6-0 deficit. Do you know how long it had been since Arkansas had come back from a 6-run deficit in an SEC game?
You know what? I read it, but no, I don't. I remember I either heard it or read it, but I know it's been a long time.
Well, I looked it up that night. It was 2014. It was at the SEC tournament. They played Ole Miss. They were down 6-0 in the third inning. Very similar scenario. And they came back and they beat Ole Miss. If you want to talk about regular season when it happened, you'd have to go all the way back to 2008. Jacob House hit a walk-off grand slam against South Carolina on fireworks night. I'll never forget this. He hits the grand slam. They just start shooting off the fireworks. And the fireworks are going off as he's rounding the bases. It was a really cool scene there at Baum. But it underscores the point that a 6-run deficit in baseball would be like a 20-point deficit in basketball or something to come back from. It's just something that teams don't do very often, especially against good teams.
Well, against a team like Mississippi State, they don't make errors. They don't walk a lot of guys, and they don't give up a lot of hits. So, I mean, to see – what we did was impressive. And you know what? We almost did it on Saturday.
Yep, they came close.
I mean, we had to tie and run at the plate with one out, bases loaded, after being down 8-0. So I think part of that momentum carried over into Sunday's game. But offense showed a lot this weekend. I was impressed.
I thought Mississippi State was really good. I mean, we'd heard good things about them. I haven't seen them play just a whole lot this year. Obviously, this was the first 3 times that I'd seen them play from the first inning through the 9th. I mean, their starting pitching is legitimate, and I was impressed with their lineup, and they were without one of their better hitters, Hyzak, who was out with a back injury. You had him in there, and, I mean, they're going to get I would be very surprised at this point if they don't get a regional at Duty Noble. I think they got to play Missouri this week. If they mess the bat against Missouri, that would hurt them from a regional standpoint, but I don't suspect that'll happen. I think they'll host a regional, and I think they could be a really pesky team on the road in the Supers.
I think so. So if you look at them offensively, they don't strike out a lot. They battle you at the plate. I mean, look at how they approached Hagen Smith. They really had some good at bats against Hagen Smith, and you can't say that about a lot of teams. Now, he still struck out 11 in 5 innings.
Yep.
And they don't strike out very much. I think they average like 7 strikeouts a game. But yeah, I mean they're just good from top to bottom. And like I said, on defense, I think they're leading the SEC in fielding percentage, just barely above the Razorbacks, like 984, something like that. But it was interesting. The big break for us was the fly ball into right center that Dakota Jordan missed off of Peyton Holt. Should have caught it. I have no idea what happened. I don't know if he lost it, if it came through a light, but he just whiffed on it when he put his glove. It came a long way, but that kind of opened the door for us. So and then the mistake at second base where second baseman didn't hold the tag on Jason Jones. You think about little things like that. If he holds that tag on, Peyton Holt never gets a chance to hit. So a huge mistake. And you kind of compare that to our second baseman, Peyton Holt. or Peyton
Peyton
Stovall
yeah.
on the steal and the walk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Phil and I talked about it on the air. That's something I don't think I've ever seen that play, but how about Peyton Stovall having the awareness to know that, hey, he slid, he touched the bag, he came off the bag, so therefore the walk's voided. I mean, it's live, so he went and tagged him. I really think 3 people in the whole ballpark knew what was going on. I think DVH, Stovall, and the third base umpire were the 3 that knew what was going on.
The second base umpire had his back turned to it. He
Yeah,
didn't see it
he
happen.
didn't see it. Yeah, so I just thought it was
I don't
awesome.
know. Is that play reviewable? I don't know if it's reviewable or not.
Oh, shoot, I don't even know.
Which makes you appreciate the fact that Jeff Head at third base was watching it so closely.
Yeah.
Who I think he's a really good umpire, by the way. I don't know that he's great behind the plate, balls and strikes, but I think just in terms of he's one of the more respected umpires in the league.
Yeah.
And Scott Klein, who's working at second base, says he's too. They're more the 2 tenured umpires. But give Jeff Head some credit because I don't know if that play is reviewable. If he's not watching that at second, are they able to go back and change that? I don't know if that's the case.
You know, I don't know. That's a question I want to ask DVH. I'd be curious to know that because that's huge. I mean, think about it. I mean, Holt never comes up, never hits the 2-run bomb to put us ahead. So there's so many things. I mean, you could go back. That's one of those series that you could go back, almost every SEC series, but you can go back and look at all the things that happen. And there's just so many little things that kind of go unnoticed sometimes that affected that series.
You think it's the most competitive series of the year? I mean, Auburn was really competitive.
Yeah.
LSU was to an extent, but there haven't been a whole lot. You know, like even Kentucky, blowout. You know, you're trying to rally in game 3. This one, even though, you know, like Mississippi State got up big a couple of times, there were still really tight games, it felt like, for the most part.
Yeah, and what I liked about it is we showed a way to win a different way. We didn't rely on pitching.
Yep.
And to me, you and I sit here and talk every week about, and I keep saying the offense is trending in the right way. Well, it happened this weekend. It really did. Against a really good pitching staff. But as far as the most competitive series, I really think it was. I thought it was awesome the way it went back and forth. You know, they got a big lead, we come back. I mean, it was just good baseball.
I wrote this after the game Sunday, is that the mark of a good team, and you mentioned this a little bit, is finding ways to win. Like
Right.
It doesn't have to be cosmetically, pleasing. It's just about finding a way to get one more run than the other guy. And I mean, this team is really good at that this year. Like you said, they can win a game 2-1. They can outslug some people. I think that gets a little bit lost in, their lineup has not been consistent. But you look at, what I'd say against this pitching staff, 5 runs is a high scoring game.
Right.
When the other team scores 5 runs, Arkansas is 12-8 this year, 7-7 in SEC play. So they're finding a way to do enough offensively to win. To the point that they're 42-10 and sitting in the driver's seat in their division.
Well, and it doesn't have to be pretty. Like you said, scoreboard doesn't lie. So they're we're 13th in the conference in batting average, but we're not striking out a lot. We're drawing walks. But more importantly, it's that respondability thing that you text me all the time when we answer back, and I laugh at it. It's hilarious. We find a way to score when the other team scores, and we do a really good job of scoring with 2 outs and 2 strikes. I have no idea what our stats are there, but to the eye, I know there's a lot of times we get 2 outs, 2 strikes, we find a way to score, and that's just a heartbreaker for that pitcher and for that team out there on the field.
When you're in the dugout, let's start with Arkansas's dugout, and you're coming back in a game like that. What is the momentum like in that dugout? And then on the flip side, when you're in Mississippi State's, what's it like whenever it feels like the sea is turned against you and there's no way you can push it back?
Well, it's just deflating because you can see it start to happen. I think on Sunday it started with just a Helfrich ground ball. Helfrich to the left side, a 6-3 ground out. We score a run. Doesn't look like anything big, but that got it to 6-1. And then the next inning we tack on a few. And that's just, you see it in the other dugout. In the Razorback dugout, you could see the momentum. And I think I said something to Phil. I was like, wow, when we got it to 6-3, I'm like, 6-3 looks way better than 6-1, and then we just kept building on it. But, the whole series, I mean, I go back to Friday night. I think the biggest pitch of the series was Friday night, Will McIntyre, 3-2 count, the fastball into Dakota Jordan. with bases loaded, 3-2 count, fastball in, froze him inside. He was looking for a cutter. If he doesn't make that pitch, I don't think we win the series. I really don't. It's a huge pitch, and I don't know if other people notice stuff like that. That's what I noticed. I noticed. What's that?
I thought it was huge. And,
yeah.
I thought the bullpen kind of got a little bit of a bad rap on Friday night because people focus on, okay, well, Gabe Gackle loaded the bases and Will McIntyre loaded the bases. But what happened? Gabe Gackle came in and put out the fire in the 7th inning, and Will McIntyre came out and put out the fire in the 8th inning, and Gage Wood came in and put out the fire in the 9th inning. So you kind of have to take the good with the bad. The good being that, hey, they put runners on base, they walk guys. It wasn't pretty, but the objective is not to let them score, and for the most part, that happened.
Yeah, well, it's baseball. A lot of people want to focus on all the negatives. Oh, they loaded the bases. Who cares? Guys came in and made huge pitches. I mean, Gackle came in and got out of the inning before
against Jordan and Hunter Hines.
Yeah, two really good hitters. I thought Gage Wood was awesome when he came in. I interviewed him after the game, and it was so awesome. He was still so pumped up. I mean, just cloud nine. It was awesome interviewing him after the game, how fired up he was. But I think he's found a way to control all of that and not waste a lot of energy. I think he's taking all that energy and getting hitters out, and I love it. I thought he was great. Bases loaded, nobody out, and just 3 easy out. Well, nothing's easy in the 9th, but I thought he was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, 12 pitches,
yeah.
Bases loaded, nobody out, and he finishes it.
Yeah,
I mean, I thought at that point, if you can win, obviously that's the. Even if you can get it to the bottom of the 9th at 7-7 was my thought.
Yeah.
In that situation, because against that kind of lineup, they hit well. I thought Mississippi State did a really good job of getting into hitters counts, and then they just did not miss pitches.
Right. That's the thing that stood out with me is they don't chase pitches out of the zone. Very rarely do they expand the zone, take swing of pitches out of the zone. They lay off speed pitches early in the count, and they get into hitters count. And when they get a fastball, they don't miss it. I mean, they do a great job. It's a good lineup. I mean, it really is. And I hated that Hagen Smith. He made one bad pitch. Well, I mean, he wasn't at his best. But the slider to Hines, they hit down the line. The double with the bases loaded. He threw one early in the count, and boy, he fouled it off. Took a really good swing at it. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, don't throw this guy another slider. And boy, he threw it right over the middle plate. Not where he wanted it, but I mean, is what it is, and a good hitter does what good hitters do with that pitch. But I hated that Hagen didn't get the win right there.
Yeah. We're going to talk to Blake, if you want to cue up the Hudson White stuff that I sent you about Hudson White and his swing and what you're seeing from him right now. The first swing I think we're going to see is the game winner, essentially the game winner in Game 1, where he has a 2-run double or a 2-run single. I think the bases were loaded at this point. Yeah, there it is. And this is the big play in that game. Arkansas goes on to win 7-5. This is after they had actually already tied the game. Peyton Holt led off the bottom of the 8th with a single. They got 3 consecutive singles there in the 8th inning, and they at this point I was sitting next to Christina Long, who works with me, and I said, in the 8th inning you're working. I mean, you're not that you're not working all game, but you're really you're trying to get something filed away, especially a game as late as this. I said, hey, just close your laptop for a second. You got to experience this. You don't get a whole lot of situations where you've got the home team up, bases loaded, tie game, beer hats are out. I mean, that was just a really cool moment in the ballpark.
No, it was awesome. And a lot of times, so when Phil and I are in the booth, I've got the headsets on. We have a crowd mic, but you don't pick up the full effect. And when things like that happen, I'll do this right here. I'll take my headset off where I can still hear Phil, but I just want to soak it all in because it's unbelievable. I'll never forget the Charlie Welch, Florida home run. The sound of the crowd it's in my brain. I won't forget it. And there's certain times in the ballpark you just don't forget it. Peyton Holt's home run. When he hit the home run, I did this right here. Take my headset off. And I watched Peyton's reaction. I didn't even watch the ball. I knew it was gone. I want to see his reaction, and it was freaking awesome. I loved it.
What was cool about the Charlie Welch deal was That was during 21 when all the COVID protocols were still in place. And ESPN had this rule where their announcers had to be like, I don't know, 50 feet from each other or something. And so nobody else could get in the press box. I mean, it was just the people who were calling the games and maybe the scoreboard operator. I mean, it was very minimal. So they had us out on the concourse that year, and we're sitting right smack dab in the middle of everybody. And I mean, it was one of those deals where, the regionals, I mean, you're packed in like sardines. You got the people in the seats, but then you look back behind you when you're sitting on those risers on the concourse, they're 10 deep behind you for, I mean, around the entire concourse. And so, I'm literally in the middle of everyone as that happens. And, when you say it's the loudest moment in the history of the stadium, I mean, I can't think of another one that was any louder. That was a really cool deal. But yeah, just do that. Just if you're ever in that situation, just soak it all in because it's a neat moment. We're going to watch here too, Hudson White's home run. I want you to talk about what you're seeing differently from him. This is the home run that put them or tied the game in Sunday's game. What are you seeing different from him at the plate? Because it's going a lot better for him the last 8-9 games.
I tell you, honestly, mechanically, there's not a lot of difference, Matt. What he's doing, he's getting pitches his own time. That's breaking ball there. The fastball before was a fastball middle in, and he was on time with it. And that's the key with a hitter is get your pitch and be on time. It sounds like it's simple philosophy, but you see good hitters on time, bad hitters in between, late on fastballs, early on off. So they're not bad hitters. Just when things aren't going well, you're not on either pitch. I see him right now being on pitches. Now, don't know if he's sitting off speed every once in a while. Like right there, I don't know if he's looking for that slider or if he just saw it and reacted. If your approach is good and you're ready for the fastball, you can hit that breaking ball because you're ready to hit. If you're not ready for the fastball, you're going to be late on it, and then what it's going to make you do is cheat and pull off just a little bit, and you're going to miss the breaking ball. So you're not on either one. You're late on the fastball, early on off speed. That's what I see in Hudson right now. He just looks confident and ready to hit every pitch.
And everybody's focusing on the home runs, and rightfully so. They're huge swings in the game, but he's raised his batting average by like 40 points in the last 2-3 weeks. He is hitting. Remember, he was the leadoff guy on opening day.
I know.
He is hitting, and he was their best hitter in the fall like they thought he was going to hit this year. And, it's like those baby steps. We're seeing Aloy, I mentioned this last week, he had all those hard flyouts at Kentucky, and you just knew that he was going to turn it around, and then next thing you know, he's got back-to-back 3-hit games. There's promise in the lineup, I think, based on what we've seen the last 4 or 5 nights.
So I compared to the Ole Miss team of a couple of years ago that you look at the lineup, and even when they came into Baum Walker, I still remember looking at the lineup saying, how are these guys not winning? Just you look up and down the lineup, and they're stud. I look at our lineup the same way. I look at all the talent, and I watch them take BP, Matt. And look, I know BP's different, but swings are swings. And you're like, why isn't this translating? But you're starting to see it. And you can see it starting to trend in the right way. Now, I think we're going to go in and have a good weekend at A&M this weekend. I really do. Now, I don't know if we're going to score that. I mean, I think we scored 21 runs over the weekend against a really good Mississippi State team. I don't know if we'll score that many, but I just like our offense, and it's trending in the right way. And, you look at even like Jason Jones, a huge 2-run homer, but I like the 2-run homer. I like the walk that he drew against Solke, whatever the guy's name was, the submarine guy. That's a really tough at bat. I like the fact that Dave left him in and let him face the righty. He drew a tough walk, stole second, slid over the bag, didn't get tagged, thank goodness. And then Peyton hits the home run. Little things like that to me and just really stand out.
What do you call a good BP guy?
5 o'clock Cowboy.
5 o'clock Cowboy.
I've seen a lot of them.
I love that. Hey, speaking of Peyton Holt, I think Blake's got this play pulled up. Here's the play of the weekend. This is his catch in game 2. This is incredible. What do you see as a former outfielder?
I tell you, I saw a ball off the bat that I thought was a sure double. I didn't think there's any way he's going to get to it, but he did everything right. So one false step right there. So like I talk about frames of the camera. If his first step is wrong, just one frame of the camera, he doesn't catch that. So like what I'll do, Matt, I'll video, and I don't know if people can really see what I'm doing right here, but when a ball's hit, a lot of times you think you're ready, but then you sink down in your legs. This move right there is about 20 frames. People don't realize that. 20 frames of a camera just to get into your legs to get going the right direction. But right there, he was right on point, a perfect angle to the ball. Every step was perfect. The dive was perfect. It was incredible.
Speaking of frame of the camera, I'm going to show you something here in just a second. But Holt, his defense in center field is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, they play Wilmsmeyer out there because he can cover so much ground. And he's faster than Peyton Holt. He's got longer strides. He is a better defensive center fielder than Holt. Nobody's going to argue that. But Holt has gotten to the point that he is good enough that they feel comfortable playing him there for 6 or 7 innings until they get the lead, and then you bring Wilmsmeyer in as a defensive replacement.
Look, Phil said it best weeks ago. Phil Elson said, a lot of times you take an infielder, you put him in the outfield. He looks like an infielder playing outfield. Holt doesn't look like that. He looks like an outfielder. I mean, he really does. All the little things, like I said, like I watch our guys, the minute the ball's hit, like I've got a great vantage point, and I'm watching them in my peripherals. I want to see their first step, and I'm amazed at his first step. Other than the ball in right field Friday night that he missed.
He looked like a guy who'd never played right field before.
He looked like a pitcher playing right field there. No offense to pitchers.
He still made a great catch.
But his athletic ability, he got away with. Yeah, we were giving him a hard time after the game in the dugout. I think I said something to Kendall Diggs. I said, "Man, you'd be camped on that." He's like, "Yeah, I got that."
That's tough for guys, though. I mean, like when you're used to having your hips turned a certain way, when it's like throwing left-handed. If you're a right-hander, it's just everything's backward to you, I feel like.
Yeah, and you know what? The ball to right field was a fastball up and in, and the right-handed batter pulled his hands inside, so he really sliced it. And so that ball really took off on him. So, it wasn't so much that Peyton misjudged it. It's that ball had a lot of slice, but, kudos to him for making a huge adjustment on the fly and reaching back and catching it.
I want to give an attaboy to Hank Layton. He's our photographer for our website and our newspaper. Look at this picture he got of Peyton Holt shot.
Awesome right there.
I mean, this needs to be submitted for, sports photo of the year type deal. That's a incredible shot. He actually, and I shared this on Twitter this week, he put together a GIF where he took all of his shots of that play, of that sequence, and he put them together kind of like one of those old flip books, and it's a really neat deal. So if you got a chance, go on social media. You can find that.
Hey, Matt, I think just to butt in here, I think my favorite part of this photo is the hat midair.
Yeah.
It's just floating there. It's so cool.
Well,
That's
Peyton, Blake, do we have the picture of the Heisman pose?
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
Yeah, we'll pull this up. Peyton's hat never stays on.
No.
Doesn't matter if it's a hat or a helmet. And this was the play. Blake's pulling this up right now. This was Sunday. He strikes the Heisman as he goes into second because his batting helmet flew off, as it always does.
Yeah.
Whenever he goes more than one base, the helmet is never going to stay on. He needs to get an NIL with like his shampoo, hair conditioner, whoever he uses, because
he's got to show that. He's got to show the hair off.
He's got
right?
He's got a lot of photos there where he shows off his hair. But yeah, I mean that was a great shot. Charlie Cajo, our another photographer for us, he got that one. But Mr. Photogenic Peyton Holt.
Yeah, he does. And even when he grounds out, as soon as he crosses the bag, he takes his helmet off. You got to show the flow, right?
Yeah. So on the rotation, we don't know what it's going to be. Obviously we're recording this at 10:15 every morning. At noon, Dave Van Horn is going to meet with the media, and he'll talk about what his pitching plans are for the week. So if you're watching us live, bear with us here. If you're listening to this on delay, you're probably going to know what the pitching rotation is. We don't know what it is, but we know Hagen Smith's going to pitch game 1. That's a given. How do you think it's going to go game 2, game 3?
Well, I think Gage is going to be in one of those.
You do?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know who he's going to replace. I love Brady Tigert, but Brady just did not he didn't have his fastball. He threw that 90-mile-an-hour fastball to Larry inside, and he hits it over the fence. If he throws it 91, maybe 92 in, it's not a home run. He gets beat. He couldn't locate his fastball. It's really the pitch his go-to pitch. The only one he could really command is that sweeper, and it breaks so much that you either start it at the hitter's hip and it breaks over the middle of the plate and it gets hit, or he starts at middle and it breaks off the plate. And if he doesn't get a swing, he's not going to get the call on it because it's ball. And once hitters start sitting on it, they take that. I hope he's okay. I don't know if I don't think it's an injury issue because you look at the breaking ball, the spin rate. He threw multiple breaking balls spinning over 3,000 RPM. So that tells me the arm speed's there, but it's not translating into the fastball. So I don't know what's going on with Brady. I love Brady, but I don't know if it's time to maybe give him a different role and let him go to the bullpen and come in and then throw the breaking balls and pitch to a few batters and get them out.
He had a couple of weeks in March, April where he wasn't pitching great either. I mean, are you seeing the same things now that you were seeing then, or is it something different?
It's different. Then he was real rotational, and he was pulling everything glove side. Now he's missing. He's not really pulling the ball glove side. It looks like that part of it's been fixed. The fastball stuff just isn't there. The fastball's not jumping like it was. And for me, I think everything starts with the fastball. If you're a hitter, it starts with the fastball. As a pitcher, your fastball sets up your other pitches. And so if they don't respect your fastball, then they can sit on your other pitches.
It would not surprise me if Arkansas went Hagen Smith TBA this week.
I think you're right.
I mean, just because I think, again, they got to win one game to win the division. They want to win the conference, but winning the conference is going to be awfully tough with the other things. Right. Number one, their opponent.
Yeah.
People don't go into College Station and sweep the Aggies. And then number two, they just got to have help elsewhere. So the division, I think, is the number one priority, getting that win. It wouldn't surprise me if they put all their eggs in Friday night's basket and said, hey, if we got to have Gage Wood on Friday night, we're going to pitch Gage Wood. Got to have Gackle, whoever, we're going to throw him on Friday night. Is there anyone behind Gage Wood? Because he's the one that, has gotten the discussion recently about potentially getting into the rotation. Is there anyone else you think that, could potentially fit in a starting rotation for Arkansas? Could it be Will McIntyre?
Yeah, you could start Will. You know who looked good? Parker Coyle. Parker Coyle came in and gave us 3 1/3. I want to say 3 1/3. Really good innings. Yep. That's the best I've seen him look. And once again, it's against a really good lineup. They could give him a spot start and let him go out there and see how long you could go with him. But I think it'd be those two. I've had people text and ask me about Gackle.
Yeah, I've heard it a lot.
The problem with Gackle is, and it looks like the rain might mess us up this week, which kind of sucks. But the thing about Gackle is he can close out a game on Friday. He can come back again on Sunday and help you win 2 games versus starting him and you blow him for the weekend. I would rather have Gackle in the bullpen lurking to come in after Hagen Smith. That's what I prefer, but DVH gets paid a lot of money.
Well, I think part of this is because they've already said that they think Gabe Gackle is going to be a starter next year, maybe even a Friday night guy next season. He's that good. I'm looking at the forecast right here on Thursday night. A 60% chance of rain in College Station. Some after 4 p.m. So Friday and Saturday look good. If they got to play a doubleheader Friday, I think they can do that. You don't want to play a doubleheader Saturday because you play a doubleheader Saturday, then they have to be 7-inning games, which is unfortunate. And I don't think anybody wants to determine a series of any. No one wants to determine any series with 7-inning games, but especially one. I think of this stature, I think you want to play full games if you possibly can. I agree with you about Gackle. It's the whole reason that Kevin Kopps didn't go into the rotation in 2021 because there's so much value in being able to throw someone that electric at the back end 2 times a weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I always talk about Moneyball. I look at it and I'm like, okay, how can this guy either help me drive in runs, save runs, or prevent runs? And I think Gackle does the best in the role he's at. And I agree with what you said, TBA for the second 2 games because we want to win that first game.
And there's some gamesmanship there too.
Yeah, and so I think that's the best way to go about it. But the key, I go into every game, Matt, thinking, how do we get 27 outs this game? And then we go to game 2. How do we get 27 outs this game? And it doesn't matter who gets the outs, but I think the right people in the right situation helps a ton with that.
Real quick before we hit our first break, Mason Molina, what are you seeing from him?
Well, so he pitched down in the zone more than I've ever seen him pitch. And his fastball doesn't play well down in the zone. He needs to pitch at the top of the zone, and he didn't have his fastball up the top. He threw, and I don't know if it was by design. They were trying to, maybe they saw something in the Mississippi State hitters where they do a good job of getting on top of high fastballs. Maybe that was it. I don't know, but I've never seen Molina pitch that much down in the zone. So what we've said all along is, well, Mason's got to throw strikes. Well, he threw strikes. He only walked one. But he got hit pretty hard.
Hard contact was the problem this time.
Yeah, it really was. And so, boy, I don't know, but I haven't given up on him. I still think he's got good stuff, and he's been in that situation before, which makes me think, man, I expected a really good start out of him on Sunday. I said it all after the game Saturday. I said, Sunday, Mason's going to come out and deal tomorrow.
Hoover and the regional, you have got to have more than 2 starters, 3 starters, whatever. One of these 2 guys who's struggling right now, they're going to have to be called on a starting role again, I feel like.
Yeah.
They got to figure this out.
Who do you think it'll be, though?
I don't know. I would probably tend to think Molina because he's got more starting experience than Tigert does. I mean, Tigert, we've seen him in the past be a huge bullpen weapon. Yeah. So I don't know. But I think they've got to have one of these 2 figure it out, because you can't go through Hoover in the postseason relying on Hagen Smith and then whoever else is available.
You know, Saturday was the first time I've ever looked at Brady Tigert, and I felt sorry for him because I felt like he had nothing was working for him. He had the sweeper working, but he just didn't look the same on the mound. And I love Brady Tigert, and I always feel like, look, you put the ball in his hand, he's going to find a way to get outs. He just couldn't do it on Saturday. He just didn't have it. Now, I know it's in him. I hope he's healthy. I hope there's not an injury problem maybe that he's not talking about. A lot of times guys will have little things going on, and boy, the last thing you want to do is tell your coach, because then you're done, you know. Yeah. And maybe that's the situation. I don't know, but it's tough. But I agree. Someone's got to step up. I don't know who it's going to be, though.
You got to have somebody who can pitch game 1 of a regional for you, because you don't want to throw Hagen Smith against the New Jersey Institute of Technology or whoever gets sent in as a 4 seed.
You know, that's what they're grooming Gage for.
Probably.
I think they're grooming Gage for that game 1 regional win.
Interesting.
It's just what I think. I could be wrong.
All right, we got a lot more to come on the Whole Hog Baseball podcast, but first, a word from our sponsor, Kendall King.
At Kendall King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kendall King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design, with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kendall King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
All right, well, here's where it gets fun. We get to break down the SEC race now. Right now, there are so many different tiebreakers and scenarios that are out there. I mean, it's Arkansas. They could win the West this weekend. Do you know they could still end up playing on Tuesday in Hoover? I mean, if they get swept in College Station, and if Georgia sweeps Florida this weekend, which isn't outside the realm of possibility that Georgia could do that, and a couple of things happen elsewhere, like Tennessee and Kentucky win a game, Arkansas would be the 5 seed in Hoover. Now, I don't think that's likely, but you have to kind of you can't. You have to play out every scenario right now.
I'll tell you what my mom used to tell me: wash your mouth out. we don't want to hear that kind of talk.
Blake's got the SEC standings pulled up right here. So you see Kentucky, they're number 1. They're a game ahead of Arkansas and Tennessee. The Vols and the Razorbacks, they got to figure out a way this weekend to win one more game than Kentucky wins. If they can do that, then they're going to be at least a split champion. Obviously, Arkansas or Tennessee could be the outright champion if they can win 2 more games than Kentucky. Kentucky plays Vanderbilt this week. It's going to be at Kentucky Proud Park. You know, that's going to be a packed house for those games. First time that they could win the conference championship since 2006. Tennessee's at home against South Carolina. Of course, Arkansas at A&M. A&M number 4. They can still claim a share of the conference championship, but they got to have a lot of help. They would have to have Kentucky get swept, and they would have to have Tennessee lose its series to South Carolina in order for Texas A&M to split the championship. That's the best they can hope for. And then we mentioned Georgia there in number 5. They can't win an Eastern Division crown or a conference crown, but they are still alive there to get the number 4 see it in Hoover.
It's crazy, isn't it? So here's the thing.
They're playing well too. Georgia is.
Yeah, they're playing great. Here's Vandy's. What's Vandy? 3-10 on the road, but the advantage is they're playing on turf. They play good on. They play really well on turf, which
Hawkinsfield is turf in Nashville too.
So we have that going for us. But I'm not expecting a whole lot from Vandy going into Kentucky. I don't know.
They may be playing for the postseason this weekend. I mean, they're right on the bubble right now.
So that might help. You know, you get a team with their backs against the wall. Anything can
happen. One
game
game you had Nick Mingione and Tim Corbin. Who are you taking?
Okay. I like Mingione.
Really?
You know what? I know Tim Corbin's been around a long time. I guess I don't like – I don't know.
Are you going to go back to the calisthenics stuff?
Yeah, there's so much extra just crap that goes on, Matt, that he needs to – now, I don't know. I think it drains their team. I think all that extracurricular stuff drains your team. It takes their focus away from the team and puts it on them. And I think Tennessee does the same thing. Look, I'm not a Tony Vitello hater. I think he's a good coach. I really do. I don't like what happened at home plate a couple of years ago. I don't think you ever talk to DVH like that. You know, he's where he's at because of DVH, in my opinion. You don't disrespect someone that's got that. Well, you don't disrespect DVH. Even you just don't.
Beyond that, you just don't air dirty laundry after the conclusion of a really hard-fought series where it's 3 one-run games.
Yeah,
I think Tony learned from that.
Yeah, I
think he'll tell you he learned from that.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I think he kind of lets the inmates run the asylum sometimes there at Tennessee. And I think they got great players. They got a good program. I think he's done a wonderful job there. I just think a lot of that extra stuff, and I'm not old fuddy-duddy. Have fun. It's baseball. But look how we do it.
Yeah.
We do it the right way. We do it in our dugout. We celebrate. We have fun. We do all kinds of things. And I like that.
So you heard Van Horn's comments after Game 3 against Mississippi State, right?
About the chirping?
Yeah. Talking bull.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bull. So did you see the video that they posted on social media afterward where Dave went and talked to the team?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, I wish we had this pulled up. Anyway, he goes, they bleep out the word he says. I believe it starts with an S and ends with hit. But he says, I don't hear bleep from that dugout anymore. That's pretty much the only thing he says to the team.
Hey, that's awesome, though. Okay, so Friday night, I said it on the air. It's the first time I've seen Hagen Smith look at an opposing dugout. Walks a couple guys, then he strikes out Jordan Hines and what's his name, Larry, I think, consecutively. But their dugout was so loud. Hagen strikes out the last hitter in that inning. He just looks over at the dugout and walks off the field. Didn't motion, nothing. He just looked at him, and that's all it took was the look. He didn't have to do anything else. The look said it all.
Well, the 3 straight strikeouts helped say something too. But this, that there are certain ballparks where the dugouts are a long way from each other. Like in Omaha, I mean they're a big chasm between the 2 dugouts. In Fayetteville, they're pretty close. It's a pretty intimate little setting right there behind home plate, and so you can hear what's going on in the other dugout, right?
You can hear, yeah. And see, it was so loud that I could hear. I could hear it through the crowd mic.
Of course, the crowd wasn't real loud the first few innings too, and that helps amplify it.
I think so. I think the fact that the crowd was like shocked, you could hear everything coming out of the dugout, and they were just mouthing. And look, I'm one of those. Don't poke the bear. I mean, just let you're ahead. You're ahead 6-0. You know, don't do anything to fire that other team up. And I think all that extracurricular stuff, I think it comes back to haunt you sometimes. And I think you saw that this weekend.
I didn't put this in our rundown. I'm going to just put you on the spot right here. All SEC teams are going to be announced before we do our next podcast. Who are you picking at each position? Can I help you go through this? I'll tell you who I'll pick. Catcher, I would go Cole Messina from South Carolina. First base, I would go Caglione from Florida. Second base, probably Christian Moore at Tennessee. Third base, stop me if you disagree with anybody, Charlie Condon at Georgia. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer.
Can we back up to
second base? You're going to say Stovall? I mean, defensively, I think Peyton's probably the best defensive second baseman, but you look at Moore's numbers, I think he's got like 23 home runs, close to 50, 60 RBI. It's tough because both of them are very important to 2 really good teams.
I think if you take take the total package, I'll take Peyton Stovall.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, I think Peyton definitely has a chance to get all SEC defensive team.
Yeah.
That would he and the Kentucky second baseman Petre. I think those are probably the two best defensive second basemen in the league. Outfield, I'd probably say two of the ones we're going to see this weekend: Braden Montgomery, Jace Lavalette, Dakota Jordan. I mean, have you seen three outfilders better than Dakota Jordan this year?
Yeah.
I know he didn't play the ball right on Peyton Holt, but he still made he covered a lot of ground out there in center field.
He
I was
looks
impressed
good
with him.
Yeah, I agree with that.
DH may be Hayden Travinsky at LSU. I mean, he's big bopper in the middle of their lineup. I think close to 20 home runs this year for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at catcher, DH.
I would say at DH, yeah, because I don't think he catches as much as the other there, and I'm forgetting his name. I'd put him at DH. You know, some people say Caglione probably as a utility. It's hard to because I think the way the SEC does their all SEC team is that you've got DH/utility,
right?
And so there could be room to put Caglione there, but I think you put Caglione at first base. That's my personal opinion. I didn't mention shortstop. I think shortstop is wide open this year. I don't think there's one SEC shortstop that stands out above the rest. You've got Vastine at Vanderbilt, who's pretty good. Justin LeBron, the freshman at Alabama, is really good. You might make a case for Aloy. His hitting has been up and down. Defense has been pretty good for him. 6 errors, I think, all year. Shortstop, I think, is wide open. I could see a lot of different players getting a vote there.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Boy, it is a tough one.
And you got Grant Smith. If you want to go defense, Grant Smith at Kentucky. Kentucky's middle infield may be as good as anybody in the league or the country.
What about third base? Did you do third?
Condon. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's going to win Player of the Year this year. I wrote something last week. Hagan, any other year, Hagan could get consideration, really strong consideration, may win it runaway for Golden Spikes. I don't think he can beat Charlie Condon this year with the home run numbers. I think home run numbers, I mean, he's going to challenge Pete Incaviglia. Am I saying that name right?
Yeah.
Okay. He's going to challenge his home run record that nobody thought could ever be touched because of the electric bats they played with in 1985. Condon's already set a record for BB Core home runs. It's kind of like passing touchdowns in the Heisman Trophy conversation. Home runs just chicks dig the long ball, man, right?
You're right. So you're right. It's going to be tough for Hagan. And I agree about any other year, but Charlie's had a great year, though. I mean, it's phenomenal what he's able to do.
It's not just the fact that he's leading the nation in home runs. He's leading the nation in batting average. You never see a power guy hit 450, 460, whatever it is with him right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, but, yeah, I agree with everything except second base. I'm not sure about second base. So, I don't know.
We'll see how that shakes out. I think it's Monday or Tuesday of next week we'll get the all-SEC teams. So they'll be announced, or they should be announced before they play in Hoover. One good thing about what the SEC does is that they have they call it the Player of the Year. They ought to call it the Position Player of the Year. But they've got Player of the Year and they've got Pitcher of the Year. So no doubt in my mind, it's going to be Charlie Condon for one and Hagan Smith for the other. And I would assume that Nick Mingione will get the Coach of the Year based on the fact that Kentucky wasn't expected to do anything this year.
What about pitchers, starting pitchers?
Well, I think you got to go Hagan, obviously. I think starting pitchers you get 2. Hagan would be 1. I can make a pretty strong case for Cal Steffen from Mississippi State as 1. I think Luke Holman, one of the guys they're going to see this weekend. Nick Prager from A&M has got really strong numbers. I would assume it to be out of that group of 3.
Yeah.
And then you get a relief pitcher, too, on the All-SEC team. And I figure Aschenbach from A&M will probably get it, but I could make a really strong case for Gabe Gackle. I
could too. I mean, I tell you, he's had one bad outing. The Auburn was back-to-back days, but I think the Friday night Friday night was a tough one for him. He just kind of lost it there for a little bit. Glad he's okay though, and came back Sunday and dealing. But yeah, other than that, I mean, he's been flawless.
The Baseball Writers Association, they had us turn in our first All-America ballots. The way they do it is they send you a list of I think there's like 40 players per position where you can look at their stats, and then they want you to narrow it down. They send us 5 first basemen, send us 4 DHs, 8 starting pitchers, things like that. They wanted 6 relief pitchers. I put Gackle as one of the 6. I believe in him that much. I mean, I don't care if he's a freshman. I think he's phenomenal in that role.
He doesn't pitch like a freshman. He doesn't look like a freshman and pitch like a freshman. I mean, he is.
Just imagine what he's going to be in 2 years.
Oh, next year. I Friday night starter probably next year. I mean, who knows? mean, so many things can happen. You got Dietz next year. You got Gackle. You got
Gage Wood.
You got Gage Wood. You got Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, such good news on Fisher's arm.
Yeah, in case you didn't hear,
good.
Colin Fisher did not have to have a Tommy John. He had the internal brace, which is less invasive way of healing a UCL. I guess basically you got to have Tommy John if it's a full tear in the elbow. You can have the internal brace option if it's a partial tear. But you got to wait until you get in the surgery to figure out what kind of surgery it's going to be. And so they think that, if all things go well with him, he'll be out about 8 months, should be able to be pitching again by January, should figure into what they're doing in 2025. Okay, so after the game on Sunday, Dave Van Horn said he's been pleading with his offense, let me write the same lineup twice. I thought it was a great line. So the question is, A&M, they grow left-handed pitchers on trees in College Station. Yeah. They're going to see a lot of lefties this weekend, starting with Nick Prager, I'm sure, on Thursday night. Do you write the same lineup again based on the way that they hit against Mississippi State and the fact that you had all the right-handers in, especially at left field and DH?
Matt, it comes down to splits. Now, I haven't looked at Prager. I haven't looked at his splits yet. I probably should have done that for you, but I haven't looked at all their splits. So a lot of it comes down to splits.
Keep talking. I'll find it.
To be honest with you, because some lefties can't get lefties out. I mean, and you look at the splits, and a lot of times it comes back to a changeup. If a lefty's got a really good changeup, you'll see righties hit, below 200. You'll see lefties hit, 350 against them because they're basically a two-pitch guy against lefties, which – It still to this day baffles me why, if you've got a good changeup that gets righties out, why not throw it lefty-lefty? I know when I faced a lefty way back in the day, if he was a two-pitch guy, I got you. Mm-hmm. But when he was a guy that threw a changeup in there, and it changed things because it gave me something else to game plan against. Gave that little man on my shoulder a chance to start thinking, okay, wait, he might throw that changeup here. Where if it's two-pitch guy, I'm not worried about it.
I got to tell you something, by the way. Here in the last 2 weeks at home, they have started playing you and Phil. They've been piping you into the press box. And the smirks and just the giggles that we got from the Mississippi State people on the back row when you start talking about the little man on your shoulder. It was great.
Well, good. I'm glad.
I wish we could put a camera in there.
What'd they think about the rubbing up the ball talk? Because that got a lot of it.
I think we muted it.
That got a lot of attention, but it's a real thing. I'd never seen that many balls thrown out of play before.
So I asked Dave about it after the first game, and he said he noticed it too. I mean, it seemed like every pitcher who was out there probably threw one or two or more back, depending on how long they went. And the thing I wanted to know was who is responsible for putting the mud on the balls. And I thought it was kind of interesting. He said it was like a student manager or something.
Yeah,
I figured it was the umpires, but that's not. In Major League Baseball, it's the umpire's responsibility, right?
Well, they say it's the umpire. Now, I really wonder if some of those guys, Hunter Windelstad, is he really back there rubbing up balls? Laz Diaz.
Maybe that's why he's so angry in the first inning.
Yeah, exactly. So I wonder, but I went and asked Hobbs because I did not know. I mean, and it's crazy that I've been around this long and I didn't know who rubbed up balls, but that's a very important thing. So if you tuned into the broadcast late and you turn it on and me and Phil are talking about rubbing up balls, you're probably a little confused of what you're listening to, but it's huge because if a pitcher gets a ball that doesn't feel right, I'm telling you, you can't throw it because it doesn't. If it doesn't feel right out of your hands, it's not going to perform right whether it's fastball, breaking ball, whatever. Mm-hmm. We go on the road, Matt, when I do showcase ball with my older teams. Like you'll go to certain complexes and it's all turf. I mean, like you go to Melissa, Texas, the sports complex there. It's like 6 turf fields. Every time you go, there's SEC coaches everywhere, but you can't find dirt anywhere. So I carry a bag of dirt and rosin and I rub my balls up theirself, the baseballs, because you have to, because, a lot of teams will just throw a ball out there and it's slick as it can be right out of the package. They're not smart enough to know to rub it up. So I'm like, here, give it to me. I always tell my pitchers, if you don't like it, throw it to me and I'll fix it and you'll like it when I get done with it. By
the way, your talk there allowed me to find the splits. Prager is 202 against right-handers, 218 against lefties. So he's pretty comparable.
Close. Yeah, pretty close there. I don't want to. I'm not going to ask you to pull up the rest of them.
No, well, I had to pull up my calculator too because you got to have. At the NCAA site, they make you do your own work.
Oh, yeah. Well, but that's real important. But to that point, yeah, it would be nice to be able to have. Look, there is something about coming to the ballpark every day, knowing your name's in the lineup. It's a mental thing.
Is there something about coming to the ballpark and knowing not only your name is in the lineup, but that you're going to hit here and this guy is going to be on either side of you?
A little bit.
Okay.
I honestly, you know what I worried about who hit behind me because that matters a lot, who's hitting behind you and how they're swinging it. But other than that, just knowing you're in the lineup, that's just a mental boost. And you go home at night and you don't have to worry about, wow, am I going to be in the lineup tomorrow? You go to bed at night knowing that I'm going to wake up the next day and I'm in the 4-hole or 5-hole or wherever you're hitting. Just knowing that your name's in there is huge.
All right. I want to talk to you about College Station because you and I have talked about this before. This is the 35-year anniversary this month of Arkansas winning its first Southwest Conference championship. And Blake's got the newspaper clipping pulled up here. You're going to be able to see this. This was Stephen Caldwell's game story from the game. Stephen was the Arkansas Democrat writer. This was when there were still two newspapers, the Democrat and the Gazette. Nate Allen covered it for the Gazette. I found his, but it didn't fit into the screen quite as well as Stephen's did. But Arkansas beat A&M in 16 innings, 11-9. And this is really – it's interesting because you and I have talked about this. Like, on the wall at Baum Stadium, there's no reference to the Southwest Conference championships. They won the tournament in 85, and then you were on teams that won it in 89 and 90 in the regular season. And, this is an era where baseball games really aren't on TV. It's just kind of a forgotten era, I feel like, a little bit. So games don't get remembered quite as well. They don't get memorialized quite as well as they do now. This is a great game. This is a 16-inning game, 5 hours and 57 minutes. It ends at 1:04 in the morning, and you beat A&M 11-9 to win your first Southwest Conference championship. You remember this game quite well. So
what's crazy, I remember the atmosphere more than the actual game. I know we won at a blue pit down the right field line. We ended up winning. I know Philip Stidham came in. He was our closer.
Pitched 8 innings in relief.
Yes, 8 innings in relief. But he got better as the game went on. He said, I remember him. I can remember that part of it. Just his ball had a little bit more sink on it as he got tired. And they just couldn't hit it. And their lineup was stacked. Their whole lineup got drafted that year. It was Chuck Knobloch, John. Yeah, I can't think of his name.
We'll get there.
It doesn't matter. But their whole lineup was drafted that year. They were a really good team. I remember the atmosphere, though, Matt. I remember getting off the bus for BP, and they lined the sidewalk, and they were all over us. From the time we stepped off the bus during BP, everything we did in that game. I mean, it was all choreographed, and I remember at one point because I grew up in Winslow, went to West Fork High School. We didn't get giant crowds at George Cole Field. We the same few hundred people. That was the first time I'd played in front of a really big crowd that was hostile, and I loved it. I remember just standing on deck, like kind of looking around, thinking this is unbelievable, and I loved it. And they were on everything I did, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
If Blake, if you can pull that picture back up one more time of the newspaper clipping. There's a photo in there from that game, and it's who we got here? Tony Gilmore and Mike Easley from A&M, and they're nose to nose. It just kind of shows you the tension, I guess, that was in the ballpark that weekend.
Oh, we hated each other. We did. We hated each other. And it was just two good teams going together, going at it. And what was awesome is it went back and forth. We scored in the ninth. They came back and tied it in the ninth, and then we go in the extra innings. We scored, I wanted to say, like the
2 runs in the 14th.
Yeah, in the 14th.
They answered with 2 runs in the 14th.
So, I mean, it was an awesome baseball game.
There's a picture.
Now, they did make some errors. I remember they probably made 5 or 6 errors that game to help us out. But we were a typical, Norm DeBryan team. We didn't make a lot of mistakes. I mean, we just went out and we were a tough team. We'll battle you. I think we won 51 games that year. I think 51.
Yeah, it was.
So it was fun. And this weekend reminds me a little bit of that. It's kind of the same thing.
Okay,
Conference on the line.
So their fans call themselves the Raggies because they like to rag on you. Tell us about what they did to you.
Okay.
Because this is something that I actually found a message board post on Texags. People remembering what they did to you in particular in 1989.
Yeah, so I was having a pretty good year. I don't remember. I was 350 something like that. It was a pretty good year. My roommate Greg D'Alexander, the same thing. He was having a really good year. We had Troy. We had a lot of guys that were having good years, but when we got off the bus, they were all over us. So when obviously with a name like Bubba, you go into A&M, they're looking for anything to get on you. It's different. Back then they didn't have all the social media stuff, so they clumped onto me. And when I would walk to the plate, they would count my steps to the plate. 1 Bubba, 2 Bubba, 3 Bubba. Then when I would take my warm-up swings, 1 Bubba, 2 Bubba, 3. Every swing I took, and I'd take a pitch, I'd step out, take a couple of practice swings, and they counted them. And it wasn't just like a few fans. It was like the whole freaking stadium doing it. And it was just funny. It was really it was fun. I mean, it wasn't something that made you nervous. It kind of pumped you up. It probably got me a little bit too much because I wanted to shove it. And so anyway, but it was a lot of fun.
And they got your brother too, right?
Yeah, one Bubba's brother. And then our catcher, Kurt Pisker, I want to say he might have been playing third base that day. He was a catcher, infielder, played everywhere. Just a real type guy, just hard nosed. Remind me a lot of Helfrich, to be honest with you. Just his intensity that he played with. And when he would do it, it was 1 Bubba's sister, 2 Bubba's sister. Why they picked him to do that, I have no idea. But that made him mad. So it was a fun environment, but I was amazed at how organized their rags were. It wasn't like just like a random thing. Like they did everything in unison, and they were prepared for everything you did. We had a guy that was a little bit of a big body guy. He runs down the foul ball, the right field line to get a foul ball. And I remember they said, "It's okay, guys. It's not over till 46 swings." Well, he was a little chubby, so it was just.
So, Arkansas, it hasn't changed at A&M. It's still the same thing. You can call it Olsen Field. You can call it Bluebell Park. It's the same. And I think it's like Olsen Field at Bluebell Park now. But the point being that it's still the same crowd. It's still the same chants. It's still all of this stuff, and they can get in your head if you're a player. So what's the key to Arkansas tuning all this out when it's ball 5, ball 6? It's because you got to be able to tune all that out.
The key is don't. It's baseball. Don't take it serious. Enjoy it. I honestly had fun with it. I really did. I had fun with it. And I think that's the way you got to approach it. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. There's every once in a while, there's a voice in the stands that just eats at you. It's like the Happy Gilmore, the Happy Gilmore voice. Yeah. But for the most part, just enjoy it and relish it because it's going to be fun. It's a fun atmosphere, and then just enjoy the fact that all those people are there and they're. I don't know. I think it's a fun thing, and it's a challenge for us. And I think the makeup of this team, I think they're going to go in there and eat it up because we don't have guys that are like nervous and I think they're going to have fun with it. I think a guy like Peyton Holt, he's going to eat it up.
Let's talk about A&M here real quick. Just a few players to hit on. Jackson Apple is their catcher. He's their leading hitter, 347. They got a couple of Golden Spikes candidates, I think. I don't think they're going to win it, obviously, with Condon playing the way that he is this year. But Jay Lavalette, that may be your 1-1 pick in 2025. You got Braden Montgomery, the transfer from Stanford. We've seen him before against the Razorbacks. He's going to be a top 5-10 pick this year. Those are both outfielders for him. They got this freshman, Gavin Gravac, who's really good this year. Really, really good. He's going to be a thorn in a lot of people's sides. Then you look over at the pitching side. We talk about Prager. You got Shane Sadeo, who's going to be probably their game 2 starter. They haven't announced a rotation, but just kind of going off of what we've seen before. And then Aschenbeck, who we mentioned, is their closer and maybe the best closer in the country this year. Look at his numbers: a .86 WHIP, a 1.94 ERA. He's thrown 51 innings, so he can really go for him. He's been a workhorse for him. 60 strikeouts in those 51 innings. A lot of left-handed pitching too. They're going to see this weekend.
You always see that, but look at. I think we do well against. I think we've had teams in the past that have struggled against lefties. I think you look at like a Ryder Helfrich rakes lefties. Jason Jones, Peyton Holt. I think we've got guys, and then Stovall. Stovall, lefties, he does well against lefties. I don't think that's going to phase us, but it seems like every year, I don't know where they find all these lefties, but A&M goes out and just constantly.
Those they grow on trees.
It's crazy, and they're all good.
I mean, this goes back to Childress's days at A&M. It seemed like every time that you'd play a Rob Childress team, there'd be 7, 8, 9 left-handers during the course of the weekend. It's like, have we seen that one? Wait, that's a new one? I mean, it's incredible how many left-handers.
It was like that back in the day. Yeah. So when it comes to like Lavalette, there's certain guys that you look at and you're like, man, how do you get this dude out? And
like a Caglione.
He's like a Caglione. I love his swing. I love his approach. And boy, if you make a mistake, he'll hurt you. And you actually don't even have to make a mistake. He can hit a good pitch hard. And I don't know. It's a tough lineup to maneuver through. I think the fact that they've lost. I mean, if you look at they lost last 2 series. Mm-hmm. I think it's either going to do 2 things. They're kind of going downhill a little bit, or they're going to get back home where they're like 30-3.
Yeah,
they're
kind of like Arkansas.
No, they're 30. They're 30-2 at home.
Yeah, that's good.
So they're a lot like we are.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you, it's going to be a fun series, Matt. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Hagen Smith going back, kind of his neck of the woods. He grew up in Bullard, not real far from College Station. I think within about 100 miles or so. East Texas kid going over there and playing against the Aggies. That's another little subplot here. He went there 2 years ago, had a horrible start against them with a lot of friends and family in the ballpark. I'm sure he wants to go out on a high note here, pitching back in its home state again. This ought to be a great series, Arkansas and A&M. I mean, these 2 teams have been 1-2 in the poll for most of the year. I mean, a good part of the year, 1, 2, or 3. This is awesome, and a couple of teams that are fighting for what each other wants, which is a national championship. Neither of the programs have it. There's been all this talk this year about, hey, can Arkansas win its first national championship? Well, yeah, A&M kind of in the same boat. You got a lot of teams in the same boat, to be quite frank with you. I mean, you got Tennessee, I mean, you go on down the list. There's a lot of teams right there in the top 10 right now where these teams are having historic type seasons. You could see a first-time winner, I think, in Omaha this year, just because a lot of the usual suspects, usual candidates, you got Oregon State right there in the mix. But outside of them, you don't have LSU really threatening this year. You don't have Florida threatening. You have Vanderbilt. It's kind of interesting. And one more thought, I think this is the best the SEC has ever been from a hitting standpoint. I mean, think about this. We're talking about 5-6 guys before we ever get to a Tommy White or an Ethan Petrie.
Right.
It's incredible how good the SEC is and deep from a hitting standpoint. I'm going to College Station when we sign off here right now. Going to be down there this weekend, so I hope you'll come to wholehogsports.com and read everything we have. And then Bubba will be in Hoover next week for the Razorbacks SEC tournament. We don't know when that's going to start. Could be Tuesday, like we said earlier, but most likely it'll be Thursday that the Razorbacks will get a bye into the quarterfinals of the SEC tournament. Hope to see you next week on the Whole Hog Baseball Podcast. Take care.
Thanks to Kendall King, where their design talents are showcased by teamwork. Kendall King, Shop Cart, and Soapbox. They're your design professionals with home run stats.